Hi peeps, welcome back. So my name is Ashley if you're new, and here we talk about everything houseplants. So today's video is going to be my top 5 houseplants for beginners, beginner-friendly plants that if you're just starting to get into houseplants and you're trying to figure out what plants you want to get, here are 5 options that I think would be really good to start off your houseplant journey. Let's just get into it. We will be judging these houseplants on, first, are they tolerant to high or low light? What is their watering schedule? So how frequent would you need to water? And how easy is this plant to propagate? So the first houseplant I'm going to start off with is a jade. It can be called a jade tree, but I got this from my local hardware store, and I got it for around $5 2 years ago. They are still $5, but jade trees are very resilient in the fact that they can hold on to moisture very well. They are succulent, so they do hold water in their leaves and in their thick trunks. They are also tolerant to high, and I've even put this one in low light. So it is very versatile. I have had it in high light, and if you can see, it has red undersides from it being in such highlight, because I had it under my grow lights, which on the scale of light are full sun. Is also tolerant to not having to be as watered as frequently. This plant is a succulent, so that means that it holds water in its leaves and in its thick trunk. So it is perfect for if you're a jet setter and you travel a lot. Really no one's traveling right now, but when you do, and if that is your job, this jade is great for that. Or even if you don't want to have to keep a close eye on your houseplants because you are just starting off, you will have some level of maintenance and pest control and watering to do, but for the most part, this is one that you really don't have to worry about. As far as pests go, I've seen a little bit of mealybug on this one, but nothing too serious or anything that is going to be a detriment to this plant. So yeah. Also, this one is really easy to propagate. If you cut right here where you see these little spikes coming out, those are where the nodes are. So if you just cut right under that and stick it in soil, or you may cut off a leaf and stick it right in soil, it will root and you can have another jade tree. This is a jade tree. Next up is this ZZ. This is the cultivar ZZ Raven that I have. I do have a regular ZZ downstairs, but this one was just closer. But this one is a pretty cool plant. I feel like ZZs don't get as much attention as they should because they actually are pretty cool. This plant is resilient to both high and low light. I have had it in both. It grows a little quicker when it is in higher light, but low light doesn't seem to affect this plant. Also, this one is very light on water. I do water all the way through the pot when I do water, but I do not water this plant frequently. I do let it get really dry before I water, but make sure you water thoroughly every time you water. And how this plant propagates is you can either take a stem cutting You can either take a stem cutting or you can cut it right down right there before the node at the leaf and pluck off a leaf and stick it in water or soil or any substrate that you may want to propagate in. And though it does take a long time, it is doable. So I find that this plant is a really easy one for beginners. It's really hard to mess it up unless you overwater, so you have to be careful about that. But other than that, this one is a great choice to have. Next up is this Sansevieria that I have. It did start off, well, I propagated it 2 years ago. It started off as a variegated Sansevieria that I got about for $4 in a 10-inch pot. Obviously that 10-inch pot did not make it. I got it for $4. But I was able to cut up one of the healthy leaves and stick it in soil, and this is what popped up. So usually, sometimes with Sansevieria, it doesn't come up. Whatever the base cultivar is, like I think this would be considered a Whitney or something like that. But the propagations won't be variegated like the original plant. But that usually only happens with Sansevieria. I can't say the same that happens for philodendrons because sometimes they do come up variegated, but that's another topic. Let me not get off on a tangent. But this is about 2 years worth of growth for this Sansevieria. I very seldom have to water it. It has been in low and high light. Like I said, it does grow faster in higher light. And I'd imagine it'd get higher light in nature where you would find it. Really the only way that you can kill this plant and how the original plant was killed was by overwatering. So it will rot from the root all the way up to the stem, and once it gets to the stem, there's not really any saving it. But I did cut up, I think this was about 2 leaves, and some of it is still attached to the babies in here. There's about 3 different babies that are in here, but I just keep this in low to medium light right now, and it is pretty bone dry, as you can see. So it's, number one, I find it very easy. It will take a long time to propagate this plant. It is very resilient when it comes to watering, and low or high light seems to not be an issue for this plant. So this is another one that I would recommend as a great choice for beginners. Also, side note, I would also put this in a very airy soil. So get any brand of potting soil that you would like, but make sure to add a lot of perlite in there. And if you don't know what perlite is, make sure to ask your local garden center or hardware store where you can find the perlite. The next option I have for you all today is this Christmas cactus. This is also a succulent, but I barely water this one, so it's very resilient to underwatering. Usually you can find these plants at Christmas time, as it says, Thanksgiving, and then there's also something that looks very similar in the springtime, and it is called an Easter cactus. Now, what they usually sell in the stores, there's a big tiff on Christmas cactus versus Thanksgiving cactus. I think the most common one that they sell in the big box stores are Christmas cactus. I will correct myself if I'm wrong about that, but there is one that you can't really find But I have two types in here. I have both a red one and a pink one in here, and this is one that is very resilient to high and low light. Right now I have this in low light, but you can see the red coloring from me putting it in highlight over the winter, last winter. It hasn't faded back yet, so I was getting worried about it because I don't really like discoloration in my plants. To me it looks kind of sickly to have the red, but some people find it beautiful. But yeah. So this plant is good on high and low light. This plant is good on underwatering. This plant is good with propagation. So the way that you propagate this plant is once you see each of these sections, you can cut right under the sections. And if you can see these little, it already has aerial roots, and it's just gonna make it that much easier to propagate. So you just cut right under the little aerial nodes and stick it in soil, and you can have another plant that is good to share with family and friends. So that is the Christmas cactus. That's a really good choice. And the last but not least best house plant that I would recommend to beginners is this Aglaonema Silver Bay. Now, if you go back in my earliest videos, you will see that I went to a plant swap and I got this plant in a plant swap. Right now it is drooping, so do not worry about that. I just watered it. It has been severely underwatered. I'm talking about for like maybe a month, I'd say. So this plant is really good on underwatering. It's pretty pest resilient. I haven't seen any pests, though I do spray for some. I haven't seen any. And this plant is really good on low light. Actually, I trust it more than any of my houseplants to take low light. It actually lives up on top of the shelf that you see behind me, and I just love this plant. It's one of my favorite plants to recommend to someone when someone says, "Hey, Ashley, I'm new to plants. What plant is your favorite? What plant would you recommend to me?" It is always 100% this plant. I love it. It's beautiful. Like I said, low light, high light, it will do fine. Though highlight, it may bleach the leaves if you have it in too high of light. So I'd say medium to low light. Watering, 10 out of 10. Love it. And it is very vocal, as you can see, on when it is stressed, when it needs a water. It's gonna droop and say, "Hey, Ashley, you forgot to water me last month. Please don't forget about me." I'm like, I gotcha. But yeah, this is one of my faves and I love it. So that was my top 5 favorite houseplants to recommend to beginners. And if you have any recommendations yourself, please put them in the comments below. I hope you like and subscribe, and have a great day. Bye.